Hey guys, it's Jesse from Project FDL. I know that it's been a minute, probably almost a year, since you guys have seen me on video. So I wanted to take a little bit of time and kind of talk about things that have happened in that past year, and give everybody some updates about what's gone on and what we're doing right now. If any of you have made your way to this video after visiting our web shop, you'll see that you can't order a blaster right now. Why is that? So let's talk about that for a minute. We are actually starting Project FDL Patreon. It's actually called FDL Makes, and we'll talk about what that is in a couple minutes. I don't have anything to show you. I don't have like an FDL4 to show to the camera or anything. So a lot of this is just going to be me rambling. If you don't want to listen to that, that's fine. If you'd rather just go and support our Patreon without listening to that, we thank you kindly for your support. And we'll chat soon. For you guys who do want to sit here and listen to me talk, let's take a little bit of an adventure in the Wayback Machine. I think the last time that you saw me, you may not have even really seen my face. It was me showing the kind of cool FDL3 noses and tails. And that was the moment that we broke out of just doing like full-length Nerf dart blasters into short-length and rival foam balls like the rival balls and stuff like that. So let's go back even before that though. So about summer 2018, so that would put us about a year and a half prior to this video right now. We actually got an email from a toy company. Now it's not Hasbro, so don't freak out or anything. But we got an email, and the email asked, do you want us to mass produce your FDL blaster for you? We can put it in Targets and Toys R Us's and everything. We have access to like the Hasbro factories and blah, 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 blah. Lots of things. When I first saw the email, I was like, yeah, I don't really want to do that. I want to build FDLs all myself. But out of the sake of interest, I replied to the email. And this company wanted us to work with them basically however they could get us. They realized that like Jackie and I make kind of this super duo, and between my ability to design a blaster and her to make them look really cool and things like that, they really just wanted to work with us in any way possible. So we spent some time talking to them and chatting about different things. So I pitched a really, really cool blaster to them. It was one of those things that like all of the Nerf community would have kind of gone, wow, that is really what we've been waiting for a long time. Can't tell you what it is, obviously. But I showed it to them. The people that we were talking to were like, this is so cool, this is totally different. I want you to meet with the rest of the team and let's talk about how we're going to do this. So we did. We had like a Skype call with the full development team in their office, and it was really cool. And they wanted to work with us, and they thought that it was like the coolest thing ever, right? So we get off the phone, and about a week later, we get that email that says, we like what you're doing, we want to work with you, but we're not quite sure what to do with what you pitched us. I think that they maybe just didn't know what they were doing. And B, like it was different. It was like it would change things a little bit. And it didn't work out. Problem with that is that during that process, they gave us so many promises and so much optimism. And my job at the time was like getting a little shaky. I started at a company that had a really cool culture, and that culture was starting to slowly fade. And so was my interest in being there. So that coupled with like, being handed a silver spoon at the time I left my job. So that put us in a position where we thought we were going to do awesome, and then we didn't do awesome. That was supposed to be our big break. That was supposed to be the thing that pushed FDL towards like our long-term vision of what FDL is. And it kind of didn't work. So we were in this a little bit of a crisis state, and that's where the FDL3 came from, because all of a sudden I didn't have a job. I didn't have this company that was going to make our blasters. So it was, nose to the grindstone real quick, design the 3, I might have designed that in maybe like a month. You know, it was the finishing touches that were the months following, but the majority of that blaster happened real fast. And like, if you guys know artists or creative people, a lot of times people like that are the most creative in their highest distress, and that's really what happened with the FDL3. And like, I credit a lot of the coolness of that blaster to that. Like, it was a crisis time and I had to design that thing, and it came out awesome. So that was really good. We did the pre-orders for the FDL3. We opened up full orders. We sold a bunch of blasters really quick. Then came December of that same year. So in December, if any of you have worked in retail, you know that December, January, and a little bit of February starts getting really shaky. Everybody just bought presents for everybody that they know, and they've expended their budget for holidays, and they can't buy more, and it's just how the retail works. It's just how the retail world works. So that was the first time with me working full-time on FDL that we encountered a slump like that, and it was hard. It was really, really hard. Like, we almost missed our mortgage that month, and a lot of things happened. So I realized I had to develop something else. So that's where the noses and the tails came from. It's sort of, it was the new thing. It was the thing that brought the FDL3 more towards what it was originally intended to be, and that was a very modular type thing. Like, it splits in the middle, but it's a little hard. You got to take wires and stuff apart. Like, the main vision of the FDL3 was something super modular, and it worked towards that, right? And that's what the noses and the tails were. So that went really well. So we were closed source at that time. So the FDL2 was open source, and that was when I started designing the FDL1 and then into the FDL2. It was about 3D printing. I had fallen in love with 3D printing like I could fall in love with a child, right? And I wanted to show the world how cool it was, and that like you weren't limited to just printing Groot dolls or whatever crap people print for their desks. There was a lot you could do with it, and you could print final products. And this was a case in point. Here's a Nerf blaster that performs like no other foam dart blaster does, in its full capacity. And it was printed, and it was really cool, and it was this cool project for people to work on. The problem is, open source is really hard, and it takes a lot of work. Like, for me to sell a built blaster to you, all I have to include is like the instruction manual, right? Of what the buttons do and things like that. And half the time I try to make it pretty intuitive so that you can figure it out. The second you open source something, you have to like educate people. You have to, here's all of the files. Here is how you print the files. Here is how you would solder stuff. We provided electronics kits, which made things easier, but then like that didn't always go super awesome. And putting a electronics kit in a box is really just me sitting down and soldering for hours at a time, and that's not what I signed up for with Project FDL. Like, I want to design blasters, I want to do cool stuff, I want to, maybe change the world a little bit, put more foam darts in the world, and like really push that thing. That's why we have Atomic Dart League, to show that like the game is really fun to play, in addition to the blasters are really fun to make, and the marriage of the two is just like this special thing that I can't really put my finger on. So we were closed source with the FDL3 at the time. We had hit that slump that I kind of mentioned, and at some point our motors dried up. So we use mostly like OEM motors. So that is, if you picture like a Hobby King will go to a motor manufacturer that already makes a motor and they sell it or whatever. Hobby King says, hey, can we have you manufacture that for us? We'll put our logo on it and we'll sell it, right? So we were doing a lot of that. We were getting motors from Hobby King at the time. They weren't Hobby King motors, but they were OEM motors, and they ran out, because what happens is a company will buy a batch of those, and then those will eventually run out, and they do a batch of a different one, and then it gets better and better over time, which is really cool. The problem is, when you have a product that you're selling the same thing over and over, you want the same motors in it over and over and over. So when our motors kind of dried up, this was in January, I had to do a bunch of redesign. I had to figure a lot of things out. The new motors were hotter. They were like warping the flywheels, which is why we ultimately moved to like ABS flywheels and things like that. It was really hard, and it really happened during a time where the business was really lacking too. So we had kind of reached this point where we were like, I don't think FDL is going to work. We tried. We made the effort. I don't know if it's going to work. We got one last ditch effort. Let's open source it. And that way, if it doesn't work, then my legacy has been left behind. People can build FDL3s however they want, whenever they want. If it does work, cool. But now we're in open source. So we saw, like the second that we open sourced, we started to see this shift. The wall behind me used to be our electronics bundle orders. So they used to be like all of these clipboards behind us, and then on the opposite side of the wall was our blaster orders. Traditionally, the far side of the wall would be filled all the time because the blasters take 4 to 5 weeks to print and do all these things when there's a queue and stuff. Electronics bundles don't take quite as long, so we only would ever have a few on there. The second that we open sourced, we started seeing this shift where the opposite wall started emptying, and then this wall started filling up. And we had the 3D printing nerd Joel Telling did a video, and 3D printing noob built a blaster, and we pushed into the 3D printing community more, which was cool. That's something I always wanted to do, and we had to be open source in order to do that, really. So we did that, and we actually, at one point this past year, were the busiest we have ever been. Unfortunately, I love seeing people build blasters. That's really the pinnacle of what Project FDL is being able to take the electronics, print the thing yourself in whatever color you want, whatever material you want, and build your own blaster. Unfortunately for Project FDL, that's not super great. That means that I'm soldering all the time. I don't get a lot of time to design new things. I don't get to work on fun projects. It's really hard to maintain a business while you're also trying to build your product. So things got real crazy and out of control for a little bit. And then during that same period, really at the height of us being super busy, our motors dried up again. So we, at that point, were getting Luminaire motors, which when I found they come from Florida. We're in Georgia. That's a really quick ship. I can get them super easily. They were nice motors. They weren't super powerful. They weren't weak. They were kind of somewhere in the middle, sort of Sunday cruiser motors, which were great on a battery, but they still performed really well. I had found really cool motors, and the same thing happened again. They dried up, and we couldn't get them. So I made a quick switch over to a different Luminaire motor. And we were so busy, we basically ordered all of those that they had, and those didn't come back either. So we reached this point where it was just this is absolutely nuts. I can't keep chasing this mouse over and over, finding these motors and then them drying up, and then having to redesign things for new motors, and then people don't know, are the new ones going to perform better or worse than the old ones? People assume that they're going to be better, and then they're upgrading motors that they don't need to, it was crazy. So we reached a point where we had virtually no full blaster orders open. It was all electronics bundles, which we've got 10 printers in the printer room over there. None of them were really running. So we had half our business that wasn't even active at the time. We were crazy busy, but half of the business wasn't there. So we made the decision at that point in time, just enough was enough. We tried, we put our best effort forward, and we shut down production, we shut down the shop. We made the choice. I was going to go back to work, or Jackie was, or whatever. One of us was going to go back to work so that we had fluid income and insurance and all of these things all the time. So we had gone to Murph in the beginning of the year. And this is how we got a electronics bundle to Joel Telling, and met 3D printing nerd and 3D maker noob, and at Murph. So Murph is Midwest Rep Festival. And if you don't know what RepRap is, go Google it because it's really cool. It's how all of desktop 3D printing started. So we were there, like I met Joseph Prusa and he fired an FDL3 and that was like, this is so cool. Like, it's different being a fanboy when you kind of sometimes get fanboyed. It was cool. It was really cool. And we met this whole new community that we really loved and all of these things. And then we went to IRF to continue my story from before. We went to IRF later in the year, which was the East Coast version of West Coast. All the same people there. It was like our new family. And when we walked in that door, they all went, no, Project FDL, you are not shutting down right now. We like you, and we just learned who you are, and you're telling us you're going to go. Like, don't do that. Come on. So we got introduced to Jason from LDO Motors. If you have a Prusa printer and you look at your stepper motors, the part number on your motors starts with LDO. That's who LDO Motors is. They work on a lot of open source projects. There's like a farm bot thing, where you have like a robotic thing that plants for you and stuff. And I believe that they provide motors for that thing and the kit and stuff for it. So I talked to Jason, and Jason said, I think that we can make your motors for you and get you back in business. I said, that's really cool, like a custom motor. I've kind of always dreamed of like a custom FDL motor with a little logo on it and stuff. And then he said like he could do the entire kit. And that really changed a lot of things. That turned us from, well, maybe we'll get motors back, maybe we'll try FDL again, and we'll try to push forward. If he could do the whole kit, that meant that like I didn't have to solder at all. We would just get boxes of these electronics and build blasters, or send those kits out to licensees who we've licensed and vetted in order to print the blaster in the way that we like it. Like that opens up the business model to kind of what it was supposed to be. So this was a really great opportunity. Jason's really great to work with, and it's been awesome so far. The downside is manufacturing takes time. Like we've got the prototypes of our motors, which are really beautiful. They're like blue and they've got the FDL logo on them, and we name them the Crux motors because this is the crux of our whole business. And we're working on a second round of prototypes, but like we're not going to see the kit until like spring because you have to go through this whole prototyping process, and things are right, and you want to fine tune things. And I'm kind of a little bit of a stickler. I'm a little bit of a perfectionist. Like I need stuff up to standard and working really well. I'm sure that bugs Jason, but I don't know. So we're in this position where like we're not really making blasters. I'm still looking for a job. It's really hard to look for a job when you've made blasters for like it's a weird thing. And it's also holiday season, so it's been tough. So we want to make a little bit of a shift of Project FDL. Now, when we get the kits, we will be making blasters. We will basically be coming back online. I don't know what in what capacity. I really don't know what the next 6 months hold. I don't know what's going to play out. I don't 100% know that we're going to get these kits. I'm very, very optimistic. And if we do, what are they going to look like? How many are we going to get? How much do they get? Like, there's so many questions here. But I do have an opportunity here. So one of the things that I've always wanted to do with FDL is make it sort of an educational thing. Unfortunately, building them, full time all the time, I haven't been able to educate about the blaster as much as I wanted to. There is, if you look at the blaster, there's electronics in it, there's Arduino, there's code, there's 3D printing, there's design. There's basically an entire STEM curriculum inside of the FDL3. And there's a lot of opportunity there. And I really want to explore that. I really want to be able to provide some education. Like, I'm not going to blow smoke up my own butt here, but like I'm pretty smart, and Jackie's pretty smart. And like our 14-year-old kid is learning to code Python. I don't even know Python. Like we've got a lot to offer in the family. So that's why we're starting this Patreon. I've always had this weird thing about being a YouTuber. I'm not super comfortable on camera. It takes me a little bit of time to warm up to it. But I'm willing to work on that a little bit in order to show you more of what I can do and more of what we can do as a family and as Project FDL and all of these things. I have probably 4 or 5 big projects that I want to work on. One of them is right there, but only our patrons will get to see it. So I don't have a good plan of how this is going to go forward. Again, like there's a lot of things up in the air. What I'd really like to do is have about a project a month, and then the Patreons at a particular tier will see the progress of that project. So like I've already started sharing some things. Our current patrons, because we launched this a week ago or something, our current patrons have already seen the project that I'm working on. A lot of them are really excited about it. And then also patrons will be able to receive, if you're in a certain tier, unreleased things. So like I designed what I call the robo stock for the FDL3. It doesn't affect the functionality of the blaster. So I didn't really want to open source it. It's more of just, that was a fun time. Like I need a stock when I go to play Atomic and blah, 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 blah. I made it. Things like that. I think the stock will probably be the first thing that we offer to a particular tier of patron. So you'll have access to files that I haven't released before, along with, knowing the plans of the projects coming up. The typical patron thing of when I do, my final video for a project, I'll put like the tiered patron on there that supported at a certain level. And I'll give people shout outs. A certain tier will be able to maybe help us decide what the next project will be, or like name it, or name blasters. I don't know. But I just think there's a lot of opportunity there, and I think that this is what I've always really wanted to do. Like my happy place is designing and prototyping and putting things together and making things work that didn't previously work. Like I'm an engineer, right? I do enjoy doing kind of factory style stuff where you're repeating the same thing over and making that more efficient over and over. But I really enjoy the prototype thing. So I want to work on more big projects. I want to work on fun projects. I want to work on stupid projects. Not everything has to be perfect like an FDL3. When you sell a product, it has to be perfect. When you make it to show it off, it can have some things with it, as long as it works, right? And that's what makes that fun, is that you're constantly pushing towards something and you don't have to be super perfect about it. So yeah, all that being said, if you would like to support our Patreon, we thank you super kindly for supporting us. It means a lot. It means that you want us to keep going. It means that you want to see more of what we have to offer. It means that you think that we have a future, and like we need to understand that. So yeah, please support us, help us out. Thank you for supporting anybody who's bought blasters before. Like, don't feel obligated to do the Patreon unless you want to, right? I understand that like a $400 to $500 blaster is really hard for most people to buy, and I'm sure that there are people that have been sitting and watching us just like adoring what we do, but they can't actually support us because our product is so expensive. So like, now is your opportunity. If you think what we're doing is cool, if you like what we're doing is cool, help us out, support us on Patreon. We would love you long time for that. And we look forward to what we can do going forward. So thank you, and make on. Have a good one.